Good afternoon, kids. It's your old friend Robert Lindsey here again with a story for you today. Does everybody know what this Sunday is? Does anybody have an idea? It's a special day. Why, it's Father's Day. How about that? We're going to have a story today, and it's set back in times of maybe your parents or even your grandparents. But it's a story that's just as relevant as it is now, and then it comes back to us. The name of the story is My Old Man. Whenever I get quiet and still inside and wish I was little again, all I have to do is think about my summers in Michigan. When I do this, it isn't now anymore, it is then again. Our mom and dad were divorced, and our summers were spent with our dad and grandma in the village of Williamston, just outside of Lansing. There's our house on Middle Street. There's our grandma in the window light. She's watering her plants. Those are her crepe paper parrots. There's Mr. Barkubiak trying to get the mail past the Gaffner's dog. There I am on the front porch with my brother, Richard. Do you see him yet? Richie asked as I leaned, almost tipping over the railing. Nope, I answered, but he'll be here by 4, just like clockwork. He always is. We were referring to our old man. Our old man was a traveling salesman who knew the back roads of Michigan like most of us know our own faces in a mirror. He was a flim-flam man. He worked in words the way other artists work in oil or clay. Sometimes like at the open markets we have here in Cullman, like the Fest Hall, where there are all kind of different street vendors. Steaming all over the state in his old cruiser with his radio tuned to WJIM, he was a dream saver, a wish keeper, a raggedy man in unmatched socks and a worn plaid suit. Every single day of his life on the road, he brought home a tale to tell us. He collected stories like kids collect baseball cards or fine ladies collect special teacups. When he'd pull up, he'd always spin us a good yarn. That's referring to a story or something he's made up or saw. Like how L.D. Dunkel got his heel caught in the train tracks when the 433 was barreling down at him out of Fowlerville. Or how he personally saw the Bender sisters buying chewing tobacco over at Fate's Pharmacy. For the hired hand, they'd say, but everybody knew it was for them. But he never had a story that changed so many things for Richie and me as the day he glided home in his big old cruiser, stepped out and said, "You'll never guess what happened today in that there machine." His eyes were blazing, and we knew this was going to be the mother of all stories. We slid to our knees to hear better. I was making my way out near Rowley Church, driving along sweet and easy, when near Aunt Elisa's woods, the machine stopped, all by itself. I just sat there. "What happened then, Dad?" we asked in a whisper. I got out of the car and walked straight into the woods and found myself smack next to Potter's Pond. "What happened then, William?" Grandma asked as she wheeled into the room. "Well, sir, that's when I saw it." "Saw what?" we asked. "You'll have to see it for yourself to believe it," he said as he squinted his eyes, serious-like. We steamed out on Dietz Road to the exact spot where the car stopped for Dad. It stopped again, gentle-like, without a sound. We followed Dad into the woods until he brought us to Potter's Pond. Then he stopped and pointed. It was a rock, a great, huge rock. My brother howled in disbelief. "Oh, Dad, it's just an old rock." "Give a chance, Richie boy. Keep looking," my dad coaxed. I thought it was just a rock too until there's magic in that rock. I kept looking and looking until I couldn't look away. It's just a dumb old rock, Richie kept saying. Come on, Richie, look at it, I said. You see, I knew my brother needed magic more than any of us. He hadn't been the same since my mom and dad got their divorce. I walked over and started touching that rock. Why, there's lines in it. They look really old, too. Now, without saying a word, Richie went up and touched the lines in the rock, one by one. It is magic, he whispered. We burst into the parlor telling Grandma about the magic rock. It didn't matter to any of us what the magic was yet. We knew it was there, all right. Ma, Dad said, what I can't figure out is that I grew up just over the holler from that pond. I swam there almost every day in the summer. I don't recall ever seeing that rock before. That certainly is strange, isn't it? Grandma said thoughtfully. It's so old, Richie whispered. Like it's been there forever. I agreed. Richie started singing and dancing around the room. Here comes the magic. He kept singing, here comes the magic. I haven't seen that boy smile like this for ever so long, Grandma said. That's magic enough for me. I just wondered how the magic was going to happen to us. A few days later, near about noon, Richie and I were making crepe paper parrots with Grandma. She made the parrots to remind her of Florida, a place she wanted to go someday. She painted glorious oil paintings too, even though her hands were crippled with arthritis. In fact, this was the summer that she was going to teach me to use oil paint on real canvas. But we were cutting out crepe paper when the front door opened. It was our old man. William, what are you doing home so early? Grandma asked. Sales are down. Times are hard. Varney had to let me go today, Dad said as he tried to smile. I couldn't believe it. My dad fired. Well, get by. We will, William, my grandma said softly as she touched his hand. Now, Grandma and my old man lived from day to day, even in the best of times. About all the money he ever had at one time rattled in his front pocket. We may be boot poor, but we're rich on dreams, he used to say. Richie and I knew that his news wasn't good. The next morning, Richie and I overheard Dad tell Grandma he'd have to sell his car. I can't keep up with the payments, he said. I thought of that old cruiser and how the sunlight caught the chrome on the bumper and how Dad's stories all seemed to come from that car. You can't, Dad, Richie burst out. Son, I'm going to have to put an ad in the Enterprise today, Dad said softly. No, Dad, let's go to the Rock, Richie pleaded. If it's really magic, it'll help. Dad agreed, but when we got out there, it just seemed like a big old rock. Richie put his hands on it. I don't feel anything anymore, he said through bitter tears. Then we all put our hands on the rock. The three of us together traced our fingers right across the old mysterious lines. Our old man felt it first. I feel something, he said, his eyes glowing. I waited and there it was. I do too, I said. I feel like laughing, only it's inside. I feel like I could just lift right off the ground, Richie said breathlessly. By golly, you're right, Dad said, and he jumped up on the rock. The magic is here. Now, we still didn't know how exactly what the magic was, but we knew things were going to get better. Another week went by, and then one day as I was looking at the paint set in the window at Baldino's, I heard Mrs. Baldino say, "Looking at them paints again?" As I started to leave, she took the paint set out of the window and handed them to me. They're yours. Canvases, too. Your grandma paid for them. Said to give them to you when you came by. I knew where the rock's magic had gone. Then I looked up and saw Grandma's beautiful parrots hanging in the middle of the store for sale. When I saw the empty window light that afternoon, I started to cry. Grandma, your parrots were the next best thing to going to Parrot Jungle in Florida. Oh, child, she said as she hugged me, you need those paints just now more than I need to see Parrot Jungle. And a promise is a promise. I said I'd teach you to paint, and I will. Each day, my dad went out and did odd jobs to keep food on the table. And each day, Grandma and I worked hard on painting that was to be a surprise for my old man. Dad's cruiser didn't sail, and one day the finance company called to say they were going to take Dad's car back. I was beginning to wonder about the magic. Why wasn't it working? But our old man believed. Almost every day he'd steam out to Potter's Pond and sit by that old rock with Richie and me. But after a time, Richie wouldn't go anymore. Then one day, there was a knock on the front door. Guess they're picking up the car today, Grandma said sadly. I went to get Dad. The man shoved a piece of tight paper into my dad's chest. Are you the man who wrote this and sent it in to the radio station? Yes, sir. That's my story, all right, our dad answered. Well, Bill Barber, I want to shake your hand. That there is some amazing rock you wrote about. Rock? Richie and I said, Son, I'm not here about that rock. I'm here because of magic, hope, and dreams. These days, we've got precious little of that. Anyone who can write those words when he's down and out is the kind of man other people need to listen to. Dad looked puzzled. Mister, I'm offering you a job on the radio. We need people like you at WJIM. Dad had written about that old rock and the strange and mysterious lines on it and how we felt its magic. My heart sang just to think about him rolling all over the Midwest in that old cruiser with the sunlight gleaming on his bumper. He'd be collecting stories just like always, only instead of just telling us, he'd be telling them to everybody on WJIM. And sometimes you three can come with me, he said. Maybe someday we'll go all the way down to Florida, all the way to Parrot Jungle. Well, sir, I'm about to tell you, the most mysterious thing about that old rock happened next. We all steamed out to Aunt Eliza's woods that very day. We waded the creek to Potter's Pond. We wanted to say thank you in some way to that old rock. But when we got there, the rock was gone. Not a trace of it. But it was right here, my brother yelled as he pointed to the spot where it had been. No sign of it, Dad said almost in a whisper. Just then the sun streamed through the trees above and made a shaft of light that beamed right where the rock had been. But Dad, what will we do for magic now? I asked. Then the light got brighter. I think it was at that exact moment that I knew the magic was inside of us. It had been there all along. All the way back home, Richie complained he'd never see the rock again, but I had a surprise of my own. When we got back, I unveiled the painting that I had been working on. It was of Potter's Pond and the wonderful rock. There it is, Richie, old lines and all. The look of wonder that appeared on my brother's face never left his eyes again. The magic of that summer lives in my heart to this day. The rock was magic, all right, but the real magic was the memory of my own man. Anytime I want, I get quiet and still inside, and I am little again. I think of that summer by Potter's Pond. I have the gift of that memory anytime I recall it, a memory that brings back Grandma, the parrots, the cruising machine, and most especially, my old man. A memory that will last as long as children tell us about fathers they love. So don't forget Father's Day this Sunday, children. Let your dad know how much you really love him for all the things he does. I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.